Is there trouble in Tampa Bay, and can the Rangers pull off a potential upset to go to the Stanley Cup?
I mean, so far, they've been the better team. The Rangers have played absolutely phenomenal in this series. Now, granted, the Rangers did drop game 3 to the Lightning, and the Lightning definitely needed to get that win in game 3 because had they dropped that one, I mean, to be down 3-0 in the Eastern Conference Finals, I mean, essentially it's a wrap. There's only been a couple teams in NHL history that have come back from a 3-0 deficit, and I don't know if the Lightning would be one of those like magical teams to be able to come back from a 3-0 deficit. The Rangers have been solid this series. In games 1 and 2, the biggest thing that I could point to with the Rangers has just been their overall pace. Their pace has been phenomenal, and they've really punished Tampa in that regard because whenever Tampa makes a bad pass or turns the puck over, I mean, the entire team just hauls ass down the ice to try to get like an odd man advantage to get into good opportunity positions to get some good shots at net. And they've really honed in on some of the weaknesses when it comes to Tampa's defense specifically. When you look at Vasilevsky, I mean, Vasilevsky is one of the best goaltenders, if not the best goaltender in the NHL. And he's looked relatively pedestrian in this series so far. Against the Panthers, he gave up 3 goals in 4 games. In the 3 games against the Rangers so far, he's given up, if I remember the total right, he's given up 11 goals in 3 games. Now, granted, some of those were on him, but in large part, it's because the Rangers have been making good, timely passes and they're getting great shots and they're executing on them. And I have to say, in game 3 specifically, the Rangers were up 2-0. They were up 2-0 in this game, and they were up 2-1 going into the third period. And had it worked in their favor, they would have been up 3-0 in this series. But they just got absolutely destroyed by Tampa in that third period in game 3. You got to give Tampa a lot of credit for really showing some resolve in that third period because they could have just packed it in being down 2-1 and just, gave that game to the Rangers. But they really showed that the championship pedigree that they've shown the last 2 years in winning back-to-back Stanley Cups in that third period. Because I look at the goal that Steven Stamkos got at the beginning of the third period. I mean, just an absolute rocket shot on the top right hand corner of the net that tied the game at 2-2 piece. And then really, Tampa kept up the pressure the entire third period. New York would get like a couple chances here and there, but really Tampa dominated that third period. And then the last 40 seconds of the game, the Lightning had a situation where they were controlling the puck on the Rangers side. Forget who passed it to Kucherov. I believe it was Stamkos, but I might be getting the player wrong, so don't quote me on that. And then Kucherov had probably one of the best passes of the series so far. Just a nice little slip pass to Ondrej Palat, who was trailing behind him, and he was able to just rip it home. I mean, I have to say this: the Rangers goaltender was in position, and had he risen his pad like 2 or 3 inches higher, he probably saves that shot, and that game's going to overtime. And then God only knows what's going to happen in overtime. Tampa could have won it. New York could have won it. You never really know. But Ondrej Palat just absolutely ripped it home. And that was the difference maker that put the Lightning up 3-2 and really kind of saved them. Because when you look at the Lightning right now, the Lightning are in a very precarious situation. They are missing Braden Point, which is a huge factor. He's been one of the top playoff scorers, not just for Tampa specifically, but throughout the entire NHL the last couple of years. And I really do think that Tampa is missing his presence. It really just seems like Tampa, their chemistry is just off this series. They're giving up turnovers in bad positions. They're giving the Rangers way too much space to work with. Granted, I'm not going to blame this on the absence of Braden Point alone. There's been a lot of miscues from Victor Hedman, Nikita Kucherov, some of the role players on different lines. Tampa's really struggled in this series so far, and it's really because I think they've had a difficult time dealing with the Rangers just absolutely pressing the entire game. And the Rangers can do that because the Rangers are a relatively young team. But I think Tampa is finally getting up to speed. Those first 2 games, I think they were really hindered by the fact that they were off for over a week and a half, or at least a week and a half. I think it was 9 days, if I remember correctly. And I think they're finally kind of getting up to speed. It just took 2.5 games to finally get to this point. So I'm not going to say that, that the Lightning are, they're done. They're completely out of it. I mean, they fought in game 3. They needed that one to get back into the series. But going into game 4, I think both these teams, both the Rangers and the Lightning, are looking at the situation where if New York wins game 4, they're going back home to the Garden up 3-1. That could potentially be a death nail situation for the Lightning. And then if you look at the Lightning have a very good opportunity to tie this series up at 2 apiece. And if they're able to do that, going back to game 5 in the Garden, you don't know what could happen. But, when it comes down to it, Tampa showed up in game 3 when they needed to. They fought back. They showed that championship pedigree that they've had the last 2 seasons. But when I look at this game 4 is going to be absolutely pivotal for both teams. It's a great opportunity for both of them. And I'll definitely be looking forward to it pretty intently.
I'm looking at this and I'm saying, like Kyle said, first 2 periods, New York dominated. You look at the third period, you give up 2 goals, one of them in the last minute, and you say, holy shit, this is the motivation that Tampa needed. Holy shit, this is the moment that you do not give a veteran team. You do not give the back-to-back defending champions at home on their ice. And that might settle, or that might not sit well with this young New York team, because this is all a veteran team like Tampa needs. Like Kyle said, they've had they almost had 2 weeks off. They may be settling into that groove. They literally ended the last period with a win. Going into the next game, this could lead to be a massive issue that New York might not be able to handle. Now, I understand that Kyle said that the change of pace has been something that Tampa's been struggling to get with, but now that the Lightning have their feet or their skates underneath them, this may be a series to where it starts to go, okay, you guys want to play fast? Might not be our style, but if we have to do this to show you guys that we mean business, to where we can regulate the game to our pace, keep the puck on our side. I mean, I caught the third period, which is of course the worst period to catch because I was out and about for the majority of the day, so I didn't really have an opportunity or chance to watch the first 2 periods. And I looked at the shots on goal. Tampa almost doubled the amount of shots on goal on New York. So it's not that the time of possession isn't something that is the issue here. It's a matter of New York capitalizing and making some tough shots. Now, if you can look at this and say, okay, if we can keep the pressure, New York will eventually fold. If we can limit the amount of time that New York has the puck, which they already have less time of possession in the last 2 games, and minimize the amount of makes that they have on goal, we can actually come back in this series relatively easily. And I'm not saying that New York, I'm not trying to be negative here. I'm not saying that New York can't win this series. But again, with a veteran team like Tampa, they just need to get a sliver of hope. Just a little bit of, oh, we could do this. And it's championship teams, man. We've seen them do it time and time again. I'm not saying that New York can't close the coffin. I'm not saying that this series is going to go 7. It's just a matter of, I would have liked to see a little bit more fight in that third period from New York, a little less sloppy play. There were a couple of loose turnovers there in the last couple of minutes of the third period that I looked at it and said, like that wasn't necessary. And again, since I'm not a hockey fan or a person that watches it as rigorously as maybe a Kyle or a couple of my other friends that I know watch the playoffs as intently as they do, I'm trying to just make sure that I'm paying attention and not trying to put too much thought into it. But I thought that there were some opportunities I thought New York let slip away, and a couple of untimely turnovers that gave Tampa a couple of shots on goal that put them in a situation to take the lead late in the third period. So I think it's going to be a good rest of the series. Curious to see how Game 4 goes. And again, with this being legitimately the stage before the Stanley Cup, the way that it's going out there in the Western Conference, I truly believe that whoever comes out of the East is going to be hoisting up the Stanley Cup, because I think that the teams left are poised for adversity, and I think that they are kind of just ready to go on all cylinders, both on the defensive and the offensive end. And I think it's going to be an interesting closeout to this conference finals.